Welcome back to the Trading Psychology series. Wow, it's really been incredible diving into the mindset needed for trading success over these last few episodes. But, there's one big trap that we haven't really tackled yet. And I know it's something a lot of folks out there are dealing with based on, what you've been sending me.
Yeah, that's right. The get-rich-quick mentality.
Yes.
It's really seductive. It promises like instant wealth, and it can tempt even, the most experienced traders.
Yeah, and all the research that you sent over, it really highlights how dangerous this mentality can be.
Yeah.
One study even compared get-rich-quick trading to just playing roulette, showing that they both rely more on chance than actual strategy.
Yeah, and the odds are stacked against you in both of those scenarios. Statistically, it's just not in your favor. You're basically gambling with your investments, hoping for this huge win that's probably not going to come.
Exactly, which then leads to those really emotional and impulsive decisions that, they just always backfire.
There's one paper that I read that was arguing that, this impulsivity comes from how our brains are wired, for immediate gratification. They cited the study where participants would constantly choose like smaller immediate rewards over larger delayed ones, even when the delayed reward was like way more valuable.
That's fascinating, and it kind of explains why people fall for those get-rich-quick schemes. They're seeking that instant gratification, that dopamine rush.
Exactly. They want that quick hit of satisfaction.
But sustainable trading, it's about the long game.
Right. Absolutely. It's about shifting your focus from quick riches to slow and steady growth.
Which brings us to a really crucial point, which is building a foundation for sustainable trading. I know this is something you've been putting a lot of thought into.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding that consistent and calculated gains over time are what actually builds wealth, not those, overnight windfalls.
And in fact, one of the articles that you sent over mentioned that many professional traders, they actually aim for 2 to 5% monthly returns, which might seem really small compared to those get-rich-quick promises. But
think about it, though, right? Those consistent gains compound over time, and they end up creating the substantial wealth in the long run. It's kind of like building a skyscraper. You don't just start at the top.
Exactly. You need a really solid foundation.
Okay.
In trading, that foundation is built on things like risk management, having patience, and a really well-defined trading plan, which I know you've been putting together.
Absolutely. And risk management is crucial because it's not just about minimizing losses, but it's about protecting your capital so that you can stay in the game longer.
Yeah, like the 1 to 2% rule, which I saw mentioned in a lot of your sources.
Yep.
That's a really great example. So applying that to your account, which you said is around $50,000, means risking no more than $500 to $1,000 on any single trade.
Exactly. That way, even if you encounter a string of losses, which, let's be honest, every trader does, you'll still have capital to keep trading and keep learning.
Exactly. It's like having guardrails on like a winding road. You might hit a few bumps, but you're not going to go flying off the cliff.
Exactly. And this leads us to another critical element: patience, waiting for the right setups, the trades that align with your strategy and your risk tolerance.
And patience is tough, though, because our brains, as we said earlier, they crave that instant gratification. So we see the market moving and we have this urge to just jump in, even if it's not the right time.
Right, and that's where FOMO comes in, the fear of missing out. It can be a really powerful emotion. It drives us to make impulsive decisions that we regret later.
For sure. One of the papers that you sent over highlighted how FOMO actually triggers a stress response in our brains. It leads to this heightened anxiety and impulsivity. It's like our survival instincts kicking in, urging us to act quickly, even if it's not at our best interest.
But as traders, we have to override those instincts. We have to rely on our strategy and our discipline. And this is where your trading plan becomes so important.
Exactly. It's like your rule book.
Yeah.
It guides your decisions and it helps you stay on track, even when the market gets crazy. Think of it as your personal compass, navigating you through those, turbulent waters of the market.
Exactly. And speaking of navigating, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part. We explored the allure and the dangers of that get-rich-quick mentality, and we started building this framework for sustainable trading.
Yeah, and we saw how important it is to shift our focus from those quick wins to long-term growth, and how crucial those elements like risk management and patience are in building that foundation.
But we're just getting started. There's so much more to unpack as we keep going, and we're going to continue dismantling this get-rich-quick myth and empowering you with the knowledge and skills to build a truly successful trading journey. So building on, this foundation of risk management and patience, let's talk about like the power of discipline in trading.
Yeah. From all the materials you sent me, one thing that really stood out was how discipline is often seen as this, restrictive force. Yeah. But the stuff you shared showed it in like a totally different light.
Absolutely. Discipline isn't about like limiting yourself. It's about giving yourself the power to make rational decisions, especially when your emotions are kind of running high.
Yeah. It's like having a personal trainer, but for your mind,
Yeah.
helping you stay focused on your goals, even when, fear or temptation tries to pull you off track.
Exactly. And there was this one article you highlighted that shared this really cool anecdote about this trader who avoided a massive loss just by sticking to their stop loss order, even when they were like super tempted to hold on to that losing position.
Wow.
Yeah, they said like watching that trade go against them was so stressful, but they knew that if they went against their plan, it would just lead to more losses.
That's a great example of discipline, having that mental toughness to stick to your rules, even when it feels uncomfortable.
Exactly. And it takes practice, especially when you're dealing with all the psychological ups and downs of the market.
Yeah, it's like training for a marathon. You don't just wake up one day and run 26 miles.
Yeah.
You have to train consistently.
Yeah.
Build up your endurance and that mental strength.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to train your discipline in trading is through journaling, which you've been doing from what you've told me.
Yeah, I've been trying to be diligent about it.
That's great because that trading journal, it's like a mirror.
Right?
It reflects your decisions and their outcomes, and it helps you identify those patterns and areas where you can improve.
It's all about accountability,
Sure.
not just for the wins, but for the losses too.
Exactly. And speaking of learning from those losses, that brings us to another really important part of sustainable trading, continuous learning.
One of the books you sent over really emphasized that the market is always changing, and traders who don't adapt, they get left behind.
It's like surfing, right? You got to constantly adjust your stance and balance to ride those waves or you're going to wipe out.
For sure. Even the most experienced traders are always learning. They're going to conferences, reading books, trying new strategies.
They get it. The moment you think you know it all, that's when you're vulnerable to losses.
So what are some ways that you've been incorporating continuous learning into your routine based on all the resources you've looked at?
Well, I've been setting aside a certain amount of time each week to read industry publications, following thought leaders on social media, and even joining those online forums to see what other traders are saying and learn from their experiences.
That's great. It's like having this whole network of mentors offering you different insights and perspectives.
Exactly. And speaking of insights, one of the articles you sent talked about the importance of building emotional resilience in trading.
Ah, yes, the mental game. Trading can be such a roller coaster. If you let your emotions control your decisions, you're going to have a bad time.
Oh, absolutely. Fear, greed, frustration, they can really cloud your judgment and lead to those impulsive trades that go against your plan.
That article had a great example of a trader who used mindfulness to manage their emotions. They would meditate every morning for a few minutes, focus on their breath, and cultivate a sense of calm.
Yeah, and whenever they felt overwhelmed during a trading session, they'd step away from the computer, maybe take a walk or listen to some music, just to reset their emotional state.
It's like having a circuit breaker, preventing you from making those rash decisions when things get heated.
Exactly. Building emotional resilience is an ongoing process, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah, some people journal, some meditate, some exercise.
The key is to find what works for you and make it a part of your routine.
So we've covered a lot here about how discipline, continuous learning, and emotional resilience are key for sustainable trading.
And it sounds like you're already putting these principles into practice, which is fantastic.
But there's one more important thing to talk about before we wrap up. And it's something you specifically mentioned in your notes, setting realistic expectations. Yeah, you mentioned that you've been feeling kind of frustrated that your trading results haven't been matching up with all those, get-rich-quick stories you see online.
Yeah, it's really easy to fall into that trap, especially with social media. Everyone's showing off those overnight successes.
But as we've been saying, sustainable trading is about that long game. It's not about chasing those quick wins.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to set realistic expectations. It helps you avoid getting discouraged and helps you stay motivated.
One of the articles you sent over compared learning to trade to learning a musical instrument. Like you wouldn't expect to just become like a concert pianist overnight, right?
Exactly. It takes time, effort, consistent practice to get really good at any skill. And trading is no different.
That article also said it's important to celebrate those small wins. Maybe success this month isn't about doubling your account, but it's about consistently sticking to your trading plan or mastering a new technical indicator or something.
Those small wins are so important. They help you build momentum and reinforce those good habits that are going to lead to long-term success.
Exactly. And speaking of long-term success, one of the books you highlighted talked about the power of compounding, which is something people often overlook when they're so focused on getting rich quick.
Yeah, compounding is like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger as it goes. Even small gains can add up to a lot over time.
That book gave this example of investing $10,000 and earning a 10% return every year. After 10 years, you would have over $25,000. And after 20 years, you'd have over $67,000.
Wow, and that's without adding any extra money. It's the magic of compounding. It's a powerful force when you're patient and consistent.
So as we wrap up this episode on avoiding that get-rich-quick mentality, let's go over the key takeaways one more time.
Sounds good. So first, we have to understand that sustainable trading is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about building a strong foundation of risk management, patience, discipline, continuous learning, and emotional resilience.
Exactly. Second, we got to set those realistic expectations. Celebrate those small wins and focus on that steady progress, not overnight riches.
And lastly, we have to embrace the power of compounding. Those small, consistent gains can really add up over time.
We've covered a lot in this series, and I really hope you feel ready to ditch that get-rich-quick mindset and start building a trading approach that's both profitable and sustainable.
Absolutely. Remember, trading is a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the process, learn from your experiences, and never stop getting better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for joining us on this look at trading psychology. Until next time, happy trading.